Voyager and Sportsman wagons for 1979 have a completely new front-end design with many new components. You'll find in most cases that the new design provides better accessibility in servicing components over previous models. One area which has some new features and requires a little extra care and attention is front wheel alignment. We'll cover the alignment procedure in detail later after examining the new front-end components. In addition, we'll acquaint you with many other important technical features you'll find in these wagons, and we'll give you some valuable servicing information about them too. Front-end length for 79 has been increased more than 3 inches over 78 models. This gives you improved engine compartment serviceability. Front frame members have been redesigned, and frame rails have been straightened for better energy impact resistance. Engine servicing is made simpler by the new front frame cross member. Now you can remove the engine oil pan without jacking the engine. If it catches on a crank throw, rotate the crank slightly to free it. The new front suspension is designed to provide a smooth, well-isolated ride. Upper and lower control arms use larger size rubber bushings to improve sound reduction and provide better ride quality. The front suspension adjustment uses a design similar to many other corporate products, where one or both ends of the upper control arm move in or out to set caster and camber. You'll recall that if you move both ends of the upper control arm in the same direction and the same amount, only camber is affected. The caster angle stays the same. But if you move only one end, a caster change occurs as well as a camber change. However, if you move the other end in the opposite direction, you'll increase caster even more. But you return camber to its original setting. Now let's do it on the wagon. Performing wheel alignment on the 79 Voyager Sportsman begins with a careful pre-alignment inspection. Check for uneven tire wear. Tire pressures should be to specifications. Front wheel bearings must be in good condition and tightened to specifications, as well as ball joints and all steering pivot points. Make sure you jounce the wagon before taking each measurement: height, caster, camber, and steering toe. Any approved alignment equipment can be used to make caster, camber, and toe adjustments. However, with the new suspension, there is limited access to the upper control arm. This makes it necessary to apply the right amount of leverage to adjust the control arm without taking the chance of loosening the adjustment bolts too much and losing your original setting entirely. There are a couple of ways to set caster and camber that avoid this occurrence. One way uses a flat-tipped pry bar about 3/4 inch in diameter to pry against grade A bolts. This lets you move the pivot bar outward or against the frame rail to move the pivot bar inward. With this method, be sure you use grade 8 hardened bolts, either 1/2 inch or 7/16 inch in diameter, to withstand the force of the pry bar. Loosen the pivot bar bolt to about 100 foot-pounds, half of the specified torque, on the end you want to remain stationary. Then loosen the other adjustment bolt completely. Now, to move the pivot bar outward, place the pry bar between the mounting bracket and the upper control arm pivot bar. As you pry against the bolt, don't let the bar touch the pivot bushing, as it could be damaged. Retighten the adjustment bolt to 100 foot-pounds. If you need to move the other end of the pivot bar inward, loosen that adjustment bolt completely and place the pry bar on the outboard side of the pivot bar. Use the frame rail to pivot from in order to move the upper control arm inward. Retighten the bolt, jounce the wagon, and check for proper caster and camber. The other method involves a new caster camber adjustment tool, which will be available soon. This tool clamps the pivot bar so that minute adjustments can easily be made to the caster camber simply by turning the adjusting nut. Install each tool so its lip holds the upper control arm mounting bracket at the frame and its hook goes around the pivot bar. Tighten each tool so it holds the pivot bar snugly. Now you can loosen both adjustment bolts completely on the upper control arm. Then adjust for caster and camber in the usual manner. On this wagon with power steering, the preferred setting for caster is positive 2 1/4 degrees and camber positive 1/2 degree. Our vehicle has a correct camber setting, but caster is at positive 2 3/4 degrees. We need to reduce caster by 1/2 degree without changing camber. To preserve camber, we'll split the caster by moving the upper control arm front in 1/4 degree, giving a reading of 2 1/2 degrees, and the rear